Hello there, and thank you for joining me for Floral Wednesday today. What I have here is the projects that we completed earlier in the week. So on Sampler Sunday, we took all of the collage papers from the sampler from all three kits and created this as a beautiful reference for all the collage papers that we have available to us in this bundle. And then also I created this small one with the grayscales that are available. What we did on Mandala Monday was to create this beautiful mandala, which I'm still working on. There's some pieces I haven't glued down yet, and I'll probably add some doodles, but the palette I used was the Grayscale, and I decided to go with the blues and teals. So I pulled those out from all of the collections and cut out the shapes from the mandala based on this color palette. So today I decided I do want to stick with this color palette with the blues, teals, and the black and whites. So what I have, I'm going to move this aside. What I have here today is I went ahead and printed the half sheets for the grayscale for all three of the kits. So there's all of these pages. This one I already cut in half. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead, cut all of these in half, and I'm planning on using this for the background. The other things I pulled out is when I'm doing any of the kits, I typically like to do all of the options. So there's 4 quarter sheets in each of the bundles. And for the flowers, I did all of the options. So I went ahead and I pulled out anything with the black and white and the blue. So this is from the Jeweled Leaves collection. This is all of the blue flowers that I created, and this is from the Teal Tango collection. And there's 2 different designs that have the color palette that I wanted. And the same thing, I pulled out all my vases that are in the blue and teal, and then the black and white. So what I want to start with is the background. What I'm going to be using for the substrate is this chipboard, which is 8 by 8 inches. So the first thing I'm going to do is to separate all of these. I'm going to grab my paper trimmer and I'm going to go ahead and cut all of these. So just down the middle. Okay, so now that I have them all cut, I'm going to organize them according to value. So value is the lightness and darkness. And in these kits, I pretty much have it set up so that there's really 4 different values. So there's the one with a white background, a black background, and then 2 in between. So we have 3 in each of these. And then what I'm thinking of doing is I first want to create a background with the 2 darkest values. So I'm going to be using these papers here. I'll put these aside. I'm working on a silicone craft mat here. I have my Mod Podge with my brush. And then I always have a wet and dry cloth just to keep my hands clean and dry and the workspace clean and dry. So now I want to decide on how I want to do the background. And I think I'm going to start with the darkest, so the ones with the black in the background. And I am going to, what I think I'll do is do strips all the way up. But for me, well, yeah, I'm going to do strips all the way up. And I'm deciding whether I want to do a combination of cut and torn strips. And what I'll do is I'm going to just get started. I'm going to cut my first piece. And then I'll decide as I go what I want to do. I like to have a little scrap piece of chipboard. This makes it an easy way to glue the back. and minimize the amount of glue on my workstation. And I want to make sure I get enough on there so it gets into the paper fibers and that we want it curling a little bit. And the other thing is we want enough on there so that it slides. So just practicing that, how much to put on there. And I'm going to just push down my first piece. And I'm going to go ahead and continue. This next piece I decided to tear. And then put the glue on. So I'm going to continue up the substrate, just laying out these strips of the darker value paper. Okay, so I have all of my pieces glued down. And what I did is I did the two darkest values, as I said. I did a little bit heavier with the dark values on the bottom and then the second darkest on the top. So as you can see, this part here is overall darker than this part here. What I'm going to go ahead and do is trim the edges now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let this dry. I'm going to tidy up my workspace and then I'll kind of think through the next step. All right, so I'm back and this is completely dry now. And I'm really enjoying how this looks. It's a very dark background because we use the two darkest values. Now what I want to do is grab my vases and my flowers. And I want to play around a little bit. So what I'll do here is just place things down and kind of come up with an idea of how I want to go with this. Okay, so I just threw some things down. This is not the layout I'm looking for at all, but I wanted to get a sense of what the different colors look like on this very dark background. And I'm going to take everything off now because one of the ideas I had is to lighten parts of this background. And I do want to play with that because it's something that I had thought of. And what that would mean is laying some of these pieces down along here. So what I'm going to do is typically I'll cut and rip and glue as I go, but what I'm going to do is cut up or rip a bunch of these into thin strips. So the two lightest values here, and then I'll do that on a time lapse, and then I'll kind of come up with another with an idea up on the top. The other thing I want to do is play with putting one of my lighter blues. So this is from a half sheet, and this one as well. I'm thinking about adding some texture. It may or may not work, and I might just stick with this, but let me see. I'm going to go ahead and start ripping these strips. Okay, so I ripped up some of them. I'm going to do more off camera, but what I'm thinking about is kind of laying some of these down in here in different directions. So I'll rip out a lot more and I'm thinking about lightening up the top by adding some of these maybe in different directions. We'll see if it works, but I'll be back with a bunch of these cut and ripped, and then we'll play around a little bit more. And actually, before I go and do that, I did want to remind you of another technique for tearing paper, and that's using a metal ruler. I put the metal side down so it's flush. And then rip this way. So I might do a bunch like that too. So I have they're straight, but just with a little bit of a texture on the edges. Let me do it with one of these. So it's easier. It's hard when you try to get a thin strip from this edge to grab it. So typically what I'll do is go like this. It's a little bit harder to know if you're going straight if you cover that up, but it's easier to do thin strips like that. And it's not going to be straight if you're not holding it flush. So that's another way to rip paper. All right, so I'll be back with a bunch of strips ripped and cut out. All right, so I'm back with all of my strips cut out. Again, I don't know if this is going to work or not, but it's something I wanted to try. And I don't like to try to perfect things before I show them to you, because I find that a lot of ideas come from this just from playing around. And if I only show you the things that work for me or that I think work for me, then I'll miss out on giving you some other ideas. So let's play together. I'm going to, I just wanted to kind of lighten up part of the top, but I wanted some of this to stick through. So I'm going to go ahead and just lay down these just in different directions, but wanting to have the background that I just did pop through. You can see that's lightening it up, and then maybe adding some color. So I think what I'm going to do is kind of go in different directions and just see what happens. If I don't like it, I know there's going to be some good ideas that come from this, so better just to explore and see. All right, so I'm at the point that I want to stop and reassess what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and trim the edges and see what I have. So this could be the part where I'm thinking to myself, why did I do that? I liked it before, but the truth is that you saw how easy it was for me to create that background. So if I want to go back, I could always do that again. I want to just wipe off my workspace a little bit. And then we're going to let this sit and dry, and then I'll be back. And just popping back, it's still drying, but one thing that I do see that I want to do is to recreate more of a separation between the top and bottom. So I want to place down some of these strips. So you see how this is jagged, and I feeling like I want to do something more like this. So just bringing back that line across there. And we'll see how that looks. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and let that dry now. Okay, so this is completely dry now. And part of me thinks I brought the black up a little too high. So if I wanted to bring it back down, I could do something like this. The other idea I had was to add just a little bit of blue down below somewhere. So I'm thinking about that. I might just go ahead and do that. Still thinking. Okay, so I'm going to move those aside. Consider that. And what I want to do is go back to playing with putting the vases and the flowers on here. So I'll do that on in a time lapse. Okay, so this is where I'm going. I don't know if you saw me moving these pieces in the back up and down, but I'm just trying to get a sense of what I want to do for the background, whether I want to do mostly blues up here, mostly the dark grayscale, a little bit of a combo, and this is what I'm coming up with right now. So I think I'm going to commit at this point with the collaging. Again, this is all just an exploration. In the end, I have no idea whether I'm going to like this design or not. It's not something I practiced before. It's something that I'm exploring, and whether or not it comes out as I imagine doesn't matter. It's just getting out there, playing with it, and just seeing how it goes, and knowing that as I continue to explore with collaging, that more and more ideas are going to come to me if I allow that exploration. So I'm going to go for this right now. I want to move this aside. I'm going to glue this piece down. Okay, so I got that piece down where I wanted it, and then the vase. And now I'm going to wash my hands so I don't ruin anything. And then I'm going to play around with the flowers. And then just keep in mind, we can always cover things up we don't like. I can add acrylic paints to make things stand out. I have other collage fodder that I could use. So at this point, I'm thinking that I want a lot of the blacks in there, maybe on the kind of along the edges. So what I'm thinking is getting the blacks out there and then adding some of the darker grays and then the blues. Something like that. And really layering them on there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry. Let's see, I was thinking about putting a coat of Mod Podge over everything. Maybe I'll do it over the vase. I'm gonna coat the whole thing with Mod Podge to seal it. All right, and then let's let that dry and then we'll take a look again. All right, I'm back again, and in between, while I'm letting things dry, I always go back and edit the videos that I've already taken. And a lot of times what I'll see is how I had it laid out versus how I glued it down. And one of the things that I wasn't liking was that these three blues are tight in the middle, and then we got the blacks and grays there. And as I was editing the video, I saw that originally I just had two blue flowers, so they were like there and there. So I think I had it more like that. But what I think I'm going to do is bring this one out to kind of separate these a little bit and maybe do something like that and hide that one a little bit, either with that or with that. And I think I want this, the lighter grayscale. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, just because it was something that I saw, and I think I can improve on the design by doing this. And again, I pick it up and then I wonder where I put it down. One of the things to do, I've mentioned it before, is to actually take a picture. If you really like your layout, take a picture of it, and then you can reference that when you're moving things away to glue them down. I'm using my camera as my video recorder, so I can't do that, although I could use my iPad, but it's more, I guess I'm not taking the time to do that. But I'll consider that for some of my other videos, taking a picture so I can bring it back to where I had it. But I like this a little bit better, or a lot better, than having those three blue ones tight in there. So we'll let that dry. Oh, the other thing that I thought of, and I just clean my hands as I talk, but I wanted to pull out some of the shapes that I had left over from the mandala on Monday. So one of the things I was thinking is adding just a little bit more blue in the form of these shapes down here, just to add a little bit. So somewhere there, like that, just to try to bring it together a little bit more. And do I want maybe another one over here or two? Maybe that's too much. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these ones down. I'll do them one at a time so I can try to get them to where I wanted them. So there. Now I didn't put enough down so that it slides. So it was getting stuck where I didn't want it. So you always want to put just enough. Now I might have put too much, but you want enough so that your pieces slide to where you want it. Enough Mod Podge. So I think that makes it nicer, bringing some blue down in there. And again, let's let that dry. I am thinking of just pulling my picture frame, and I am really enjoying this. So I love the little splashes of blue throughout, the blue vase, the dark values down at the bottom, all those light ones that I added up there. But let's take a look when it's completely dry and see if there's anything else that I'd like to add. All right, so I'm back with this completely dry, and I'm really, really enjoying it like it is. The only thing that I can think of is whether I want to lighten the background just a little bit, and I'm not quite sure. We did seal it with Mod Podge, so I could test out some acrylic paint, and if I don't like it, I could wash it off because it's been coated. I think I coated everything. Yeah, okay. So what I'm going to do is give that a try. And this is a technique that we've done before in some of the previous lessons. So what I have is some water here. I have a paintbrush and I have a opaque white acrylic paint. So I'm going to put a little bit on here. The other thing I have is some materials to add some stamping and texture. So that could add a little bit of interest in the background as well. I have some different caps here that can be used to add some circles if I want to do that. So I have some different sizes. This is a little tube, a little bottle cap. So what I'm going to do is wet my brush, and I want to thin out this paint. I want it nice and thin because what I want to do is just add a little bit of a transparent wash over what I have here so that the flowers stand out a little bit more. So I'm carefully getting around the flowers. So thin enough that we still see the background, but that the flowers pop a little bit more. Okay, so you see what a difference that makes? So we can still appreciate that background, but it makes everything stand out. If I want to pull a little bit back on it, I could try pushing down. This is some shelf liner, so I can pull a little bit of it off, and that actually brings some interesting texture as well. So just pulling a little bit of that off. And I think that's looking a lot better because everything just really, the flowers really pop now. So look at that. And then the other question is, do I want to add any other interesting marks? And that would be, like I said, we can use these caps here, put a little bit of paint along the edge. That one's subtle. It's not standing out too much. And do I want to add anything down here? I don't want to overdo it. I'm really enjoying it as it is. So they're not standing out. That one stood out a little bit more. Typically at a certain point, I just want to stop, let things sit at least overnight, and then come back to them and see if I want to do anything else. But I think as it is, I'm really enjoying this. And I do want to pull out the mandala again. So let's do that. I'm going to move this aside. Move this over. And again, the mandala is not complete yet. I have these that I might want to do on the side. But look at how beautiful these look together. Because we did the color palette the same, I'm actually not able to slide this in. There we go. Okay, because we did the color palette the same, look at how gorgeous those look together. So I'm really, gosh, I'm excited. I'm excited to add some doodles there. Maybe leave this as it is, but I hope you had a good time today and you have some good ideas from this session. And I would love to see what you're working on. And I hope you'll be joining me for Animal Friday, where I plan to use the same color palette and explore the frog collection with that. So I think what I'm going to be doing is working with black and white frogs and then doing a blue background. That's my idea right now, but we'll see how it goes. Thanks again for joining me. I'll see you in the next session.